Hey, beautiful people. Welcome to the BU podcast. I'm your host, Ariel Von Bretter. My mission is to empower people to become the best versions of themselves so that they can live their best lives. I'm redefining success so people stop living the lives they think they should live and start living the lives they love. Join me weekly as I share my own insights and speak with guests that have embraced their unique gifts into living life on their terms. I hope these conversations inspire you to make the most out of your life by being your best self. Remember, be you, be beautiful. Before we get into the show, I wanted to take a moment to share how I host my podcast using Anchor. It's free and easy to use. You can record and edit using your phone or computer, and then Anchor distributes your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many other platforms. It's super easy to use, and they do the work for you. I highly recommend using Anchor. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Now, on to the show. Hey, you guys. In this episode, I get to speak with Carenda Deonne. Carenda seriously does it all. She's a speaker, an author, marketing expert, mediator, consultant, and I'm sure so much more. She is so full of positive energy, and we had such a just like motivating and inspiring conversation. I really loved speaking with her about her spin on the old saying, when life gives you lemons. I can't wait for you guys to hear more about that. And she's just definitely here to make a difference in everything that she does. I know you guys are going to just love this conversation. So get ready to take aim and enjoy. Carenda, thank you so much for being on the BU podcast today. Will you just tell my audience a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Sure. So first, Ariel, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited about being on your platform and reaching out to your audience. Just, it's such a pleasure. I am from Baltimore, as they say, be more, and was born and raised there. And growing up, I was always a child that enjoyed to write. I loved writing poetry. And so, while other kids were out playing and riding bikes, and yes, I know how to ride a bike, but I spent most of my time doing tea parties and writing poetry and really allowing words to be my safe place. Really allowing words to be a place of healing, a place of vulnerability. And so that's always been near and dear to my heart. And still to this day, I do a lot of writing through some of the books that I've done and et cetera. I went to FIT in New York, the Fashion Institute. Love that school, studied marketing there. And actually, just recently, I graduated with my master's from Regent University. I have a master's in law with mediation, dispute resolution. So I guess I'm just well versed here. I'm helping people marketing. I'm helping people solve problems.
Yeah, you're the full package. Everyone needs that, especially for business and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I love life, Ariel. I've always been an optimistic person. And even when I've gone through some of the most trying situations and obstacles in my life, I've always kept pushing, I've always kept pressing, and I've always kept myself in a very positive mindset. So yeah, I enjoy life. I enjoy laughing. I've got like a little, comedic side of me. My jokes are kind of dry, but hey, it works.
I love it. And I feel like it sounds like from an early age, you were already kind of doing the things like with writing and using that to let things out and healing and stuff. That's something that most people don't even get into until later in life, and still kind of working on it now. I love journaling, but I don't do it all the time like I should. And then I talk to people who are like, yeah, I really need to get into journaling. But it sounds like you were already doing that when you were younger, and you've always been optimistic. And usually when I talk to people, it's were you always this way? But it sounds like you were.
Yeah, you know what? It's so funny. Growing up, I liked to talk. My mom said I like to have the last word, and so that got me in trouble sometimes, Ariel. And so yeah, but I love to talk. I love to express, and also words for me. Writing for me was just another way of expression. And so unfortunately, growing up being bullied in school, and not having the opportunity to kind of really envelop some healthy relationships, because I thought I had to either bribe or buy or, be someone that I was not in order to have friends, really affected some of the things and decisions and choices I made later on in life. However, writing was a place in which I could really express myself. So yeah.
Yeah. So when did you kind of discover that, that you didn't have to, bribe and please people to have them be your friends and that you could really just be yourself? When did that kind of happen?
Do you really want to know?
Yes.
Oh, you know what? It did not happen until I was almost 40. It took a long time. It took a long
Yeah.
Yeah, it took a long time. I think there were phases. I think, Ariel, we go through phases in life where there are stunts of growth and development. And then I think there are things and seasons and times we go through life where it's a complete change, right? So there were times where I could tell I was getting stronger. I could tell, okay, I'm maturing. Okay, you know what I mean? But then there would be times I would kind of slip back, right? And so it wasn't until I was close to 40 years old, after going through 2 marriages and 2 divorces, after going through some major health challenges, and after going through failed business relationships, I was like, hey, something's got to change, and it can't change just for a week. It's got to be a change, like a lifestyle change, a change for a better Carenda. So it wasn't until I was much older, but I'm glad I did.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we're just always a work in progress. So, like you had to like keep learning certain lessons and going through things. But I mean, now you have like a better grip on it. But like it's still a work in progress, I'm sure.
Yes, it's still a work in progress, Ariel, but I will say this. One thing that I can say now that I could not have said before is that I am truly in a very settled place, right? Settled mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And so I'm telling you, that is the best. When you reach that place of settlement from the inside out, it just makes the difference. It really makes the difference.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that.
Mhm.
And you kind of mentioned about changing, and I know that you refer to yourself as your number one change agent. So will you just tell us a little bit about that and like where that came from and what it means?
It was kind of like it was just like a joke. I was kind of playing around, and then I was like, hey, you know what? I like that, because here's the thing with me. I am a licensed minister as well, Ariel. And one of the things about me is I am very thought provoking. So I'm always thinking about, okay, why are we doing what we do? What mental capacity and what's causing us to think that way, to change in behavior, thought process, etc. So I've always been very thought provoking as a person. And so, I'm like, for me, as a number one change agent, I feel that a lot starts with the mind. Now, a
Mhm.
lot also does start with the heart, but the way you think of yourself, the way you process, the way you look at and choose to view your challenges, your obstacles, and your success,
Yeah.
really is mental. And so being the number one change agent is really about changing your thought process, right?
Yeah.
It's really about changing your thought process. So that's where that kind of came from.
Yeah, I love that. And you kind of you brought up like it starts with your mind, but it also starts with your heart too. And I think that just kind of like clicked something for me. So like will you kind of tell us the correlation between like your heart and mind?
Sure. In most cases, when things happen to us, either good or not so good, the heart is immediately affected. In most cases, there is an emotional expression, or there is an emotional response that is triggered from the heart, right? And so immediately your heart will kind of dictate how you should feel. But you got to be sensitive and not ignore that. But however, also understand that if you're going to see growth, if you're going to see continued development in your obstacles, in your success, you have to be one that can think clearly as well. Because sometimes what happens is that we have these emotions within our heart and we're not even thinking clearly. We're just making every decision based on that particular emotion or feeling. But
Right.
when you can kind of shift, you can, like I said, not ignore the feelings of the heart, but when you can kind of shift to a level of thought, to a level of maturity, to say, okay, I may feel this way, but I need to think another way, or I may feel this way and I need my thoughts to line with that feeling. That to me is true maturity as an individual and as a person. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, for
Yeah.
sure. I'm just like, yeah, there's a lot there with, I mean, because like our emotions can let us like run wild and stuff, but really,
ma'am.
where, yeah.
Yes. And so I had to challenge myself. And what makes me so excited about what I do and the whole message of taking aim and living life on the promise of impact is understanding how the two work and really understanding the differences. And I had to challenge myself because I am like the hopeless romantic. I am very blue, very emotional. I can, I'm that friend that's overly dramatic. If you want that overly dramatic response, I'm that friend, right? And I'm a salesperson's biggest dream come true. I mean, I'm like, sure, I'll try it, right? But I really had to train myself and my mind to pause, to stop, to consider, to reflect, to process. And in doing that, I am now, as I told you earlier, in a place of settlement and making just so many better choices for a better Carenda.
Yeah, I love it. And I just love that you brought up being settled again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think it's just kind of a good place to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, I mean, on one hand, you can kind of look at it as like, oh, you're settled and like, this is it. But it's also just like, you're content and you're good with that. And you're being who you're supposed to be and doing what you're supposed to be. Like you're in the right place.
Yes.
Yeah. And you brought up your taking aim
Mm-hmm.
and impact and how you kind of work with that. Will you just tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. Listen, Ariel, I always get excited when we talk about taking aim.
Yes.
As I told you before, I have a marketing degree. And one of the things, well, let me back up. Let me tell you the essence of the whole taking aim. I was going through a separation at the time of my second marriage, and it was difficult. Okay, like I said, I can overemphasize. It was difficult. All right, so there were a lot of challenges and things that I was facing at the time, and I was talking to a friend, and I said, just kind of venting and talking to the friend. And I said, that saying, when life gives you lemons to make lemonade? And they're like, yeah. And I said, but what if I don't want to make lemonade? What if I want to make lemonade? And so my friend said, well, don't take aim. I was like, oh my. Ariel, I promise you, from that next breath, everything in my life changed. So what did I do? Carenda stopped pointing the finger outward and really took inventory of Carenda. Carenda took accountability for what Carenda needed to take accountability for. Carenda forgave herself and others and really began to throw those lemons back. And so I am all about telling women, you don't have to make lemonade. Making lemonade is a choice. We really have enough faith, enough fortitude, and enough forgiveness to throw the lemons back. So I get excited because I had to take aim, right? I'm not just telling people to do something that I did not have to do. And it doesn't have to just necessarily be in regards to relationships, Ariel. It could be financial, it could be business or career. But we all will face lemons. Life does give us lemons, but my challenge is to take aim.
Yeah, so is that kind of like to really get like focused on like where you want your attention to go with like taking aim and like, like and with throwing the lemons back, is that kind of like I don't have to like take this anymore and like I don't want it. So yeah, just kind of like explain it a little bit more to me.
Sure. So it's really about accountability, right? Because it's easy to dismiss or blame someone or something for why you feel you are where you are or what's happening to you, etc. Right?
Yeah.
Taking aim is saying, I'm willing to be so transparent with myself that I'm not going to any longer point the finger, but really see where my weaknesses are, really see what areas in me I need to work on, and really start putting forth the effort to make that change. So taking aim is not just it's not just saying, okay, I forgive myself. Okay, great, you forgive yourself. That's part of it. But now, what is the action? What are you going to do? How are you going to exemplify that change? How are you going to exuberate that you truly are a new you and that you've forgiven yourself and that you're moving on? And so it's really about accepting what I need to accept, as hard as it may sound, as hard as it may be, and then making the actionable steps to move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I like it. And
Yeah.
then like I don't know if you have ever thought about an acronym or anything for it, but when you said it, I was just like AIM. And then I was like, accountability is mine. So like feel free to use.
Ma'am, I'm going to use that, Ariel. Absolutely. I told my friend, I said, listen, I'm using that. I'm so sorry. Maybe, I'll pay you for it if I need to, but I'm using taking aim. So Ariel, yes, I'm going to use that. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, like it just kind of like resonated with me. So I was like, maybe it'll resonate with someone else. So
Taking accountability is mine. I loved it.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's about. Yeah.
And then why do you think that some people are afraid to take aim?
Mm. Change is not easy, right? But it's evident. I mean, change is inevitable. We will face change. All of us in some type of capacity has dealt with change.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is uncomfortable. And sometimes it doesn't feel good. And sometimes it does feel good. And sometimes, I mean, it is just a ball of emotion, right?
Yeah.
Change comes with so many thoughts and so many opinions and so much input, right? So sometimes it's just one, fear. Sometimes it's just two, not having the support system needed to know that you really can. And sometimes it's just fighting change, just when you're so used to dealing with something or being in a certain situation or circumstance and feeling a certain way, sometimes it's hard. But I'll give you a really quick example, Ariel. I just went through a health challenge, and it happened fast. It was unpronounced. I mean, it just happened, and a lot of things just kind of blew up. And so after I got home, and I was sitting on my couch, I could tell that my energy level was low, and I am very bubbly, on the go. That's me. So
Yeah.
to not have the energy that I'm used to, I felt a little defeated, and I said, okay, wait a minute, we got to take aim. We got to take aim. So you know what I did? My mother and we got up every day and we walked. I was at the point where I was working out maybe 3 times a week, up to 7,500 steps a day, like just feeling great. But you know what, Ariel? I just started walking for like 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, right? That was taking aim, right? So it's like, don't don't see your progress as, oh, this is so little or this is so minute.
Yeah.
Any progress is great development. Any progress adds to your endurance. So continue, regardless if you have to take baby steps, regardless if you feel like you're taking 3 steps back, it doesn't matter, right? It's
Yeah.
so important. Progress will continue to strengthen your endurance. So yeah, it's so
Yeah.
important. Mhm.
I really like that. I know for me, especially like over this last year, I've been really trying to focus on just like taking like small baby steps and like focusing on one thing at a time because it's so easy to just like want things to happen so quickly and to see
Yes.
someone else who's already, you know, so far ahead. I'm just like, I don't know how my little baby steps are gonna get there.
And they will. And you know what's so interesting when you said that, Ariel, is that sometimes, you know, we think like, yeah, how am I going to get there? This isn't going to work, or this is going to take forever. And we have to understand that that is the beauty of life. It is the journey. It really is the journey. You know, we live in a world where with the instant gratification or with everything at the fingertips of your cell phone or tablet or whatever. And we're so used to that quick response, that get it now. But the beauty of life is the journey. And so it's not easy. It's not easy because we want to see change immediately, but we have to be patient with ourselves.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I'm kind of curious along that, how can people handle the journey like when things aren't really going their way or they just kind of feel disappointed by like their progress with something? How can they
Mhm.
handle that?
So I would recommend 3 things. First thing is you must love on yourself. Oh my gosh. I I'm big on love. You must love on yourself, right? So if it's saying a 2 to 3 sentence affirmation, if it's reading something that's within a book that is empowering or encouraging for you, but you've got to love on yourself. You also need to, I'm big on, and it doesn't have to be a long journal list, but write down or even speak the things that you are grateful for on a daily basis. And
Mhm.
really surround yourself with at least one person that can hold you accountable and also pour into you. That's very, very important when you're going through that process, because you've got to be challenged and you got to have some nurturing at the same time. But you can't have all nurture and no challenge, because you won't. You know what I'm saying? You can't have all nurture and no challenge, because you're not going to grow in that sense. You need the challenge and the nurturing. So you need someone that has that good balance, that can be that person for you.
Yeah. I wish that we could just have the nurturing and not the challenge.
I know. I know. Oh, tell me about it.
Will you tell us a little bit about how people can turn their negativity into momentum?
Oh gosh, yes. Turning your negativity and your greatest momentum is absolutely possible. And as I told you before, Ariel, I'm always optimistic. So,
Yeah.
when I see the glass, I always see it that it's half full and not half empty. And one thing that you also have to do is mentally, when people when people may have said, "Oh, you can't do this," or you shouldn't follow this path, or you shouldn't go for your dreams, or whatever the case might be, um, don't let that be what holds you back. Let that be what pushes you forward. Now, when I say that, I don't want people to do things because I'm going to prove that person, I'm going to prove something. It's not about proving, it's about purpose. It's never
Yeah.
about proving, it's about purpose. So my thing is, if it is your purpose to do, and someone is saying that you cannot, or they're being negative, or they are displaying a tone, or sharing words that are not empowering you, don't let that hold you back.
Yeah.
Turn that and to fuel for your purpose. So important.
Yeah. And I mean, because you've done a lot of things that I feel like we haven't really even talked about, like all that you really do. But just the fact that got your degree in marketing and now, you've got your master's in law, like you've
No.
been doing some things. So, I mean, have you experienced people that have told you like that you couldn't do it or some negative things around
Absolutely.
that?
Oh gosh, absolutely. So interesting. Growing up, I wasn't very strong in English. That was one class I dreaded. I just wasn't strong in English, and so
Yeah.
I would go to class and. Ariel, I would just have my head down like I don't even want the paperback. I'm just, oh my gosh, and it would just be marked up. I mean, red marks. It was just like, I felt so defeated. And I remember my teacher telling me, she said, Carenda, you are very gifted, you are very talented. There are a lot of things that you do well. You have so much potential. But one thing that is not your gift is writing. And I was like, darn, right? But I would still come home, I would write my poetry, right?
Mhm.
And I would also partner with my cousin, and she was very, very strong in English. Hey, Melody. She was very strong in English. And so she would help me, and giving me advice and reading over my papers and just encouraging me and that kind of thing. And so that was helpful too. But I was told back then that, listen, writing is not your thing. And so I turned that into my greatest momentum. I stayed true to my purpose and I allowed it to fuel me. And am I the greatest writer? Probably not. But I have, self-published 3 books. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, it's so funny how many people who are writers and have published books, so they like were told they weren't a good writer when they were young, but
Yeah.
so that they like stuck with it and did it for themselves and as part of their purpose. Will you tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about the books that you've published?
Sure. So my first book was a poetry book. It's called Soul of a Poet, and I was so excited about that book. And
Yeah.
so yeah, and so it's called Soul of a Poet. That was the first book, and then I was a contributing writer for the second book. It was called The Wait, WAIT, The Wait to Success, and I was able to express my journey as an entrepreneur, the highs and the lows, and the pitfalls and the red flags and the things that I learned along the way. And then
Yeah.
my latest book is Perfect Patty Messed Up Devotion. And that title, I was inspired by Tyler Perry's movie, Why Did I Get Married? And but I turned it into a 40-day inspirational devotional for women, for
Okay.
them, for them to understand that you know perfectionism is not the way of life. It's really learning from your mistakes and having grace as you move forward. So I'm really excited about that. I'm actually starting the second edition of Perfect Patty Messed Up. So I am actually looking for some women who are ready to tell their story on how they messed up and the lessons that they have learned.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that. And I mean, I'm just kind of curious about like, what's your timeline for that?
Well, I'm hoping to launch the book by the end of 2021.
Okay,
Yes,
awesome. Yeah, it's like,
yes,
well, hopefully
yes,
some people listening will be like, oh, I want to contribute, or at least like, go and get your books, of course.
yes, definitely. If you have a story you're ready to tell, you're ready to help other women to say, listen, this is my story. These are the lessons I've learned. This is the wisdom that I've received. Please, yes, contact me. I definitely want to hear from you.
Yeah, and then so I'm just kind of thinking now of like, did you have any doubts with, putting yourself out there with your books and your contributions of like telling your stories, like, or was that like, how did that even come up that you wanted to do that?
You know, I did. And I'll tell you, Ariel, it wasn't easy for me. My first marriage, I was a pastor's wife. And so you learn how to be very reserved and you don't share a lot, right? And
Yeah.
so that affected me because I've always felt like I've got to protect myself. I can't let anyone in. it doesn't matter what's going on the inside. I'm going to always look like I have it all together. Anytime anyone sees me, they won't be able to tell something is wrong because I know the lingo. I know what to say. I know how to smile. I know the poise, all of that.
Yeah.
And but you are in so much bondage when you live like that.
Right. I was like, that's just like a whole nother conversation about like what that felt like, and then being able to truly be yourself.
You were in so much bondage. But you know what? It wasn't until I went through counseling that it broke that shell of, listen, open up. People want the authentic you. People want to hear you. And so little by little, I started. And then, I mean, now it's like a rushing flow of river, I don't hold back anything now. But that pressure of, oh my gosh, what are people going to think? Oh my gosh, what are people going to say? Oh my goodness, I'm going to be the talk of the dinner table. And hey, you know what, Ariel, that might be when you're doing good and when you're not doing so good. People will still talk. People will always.
Yeah, they're going to talk about you either way.
Either way. So, hey, how about living my best life by being my best self?
Yeah.
Yes.
I love it. And tell me more about like what impact you want, from your books, but also like what you're doing now. Like what kind of impact do you want to leave with people?
I want people, the impact that I want to leave with people is that they are enough, and that healing is truly possible. And when you finally get to that place of fulfillment, it's not because of what you can afford. It's not because of what you drive or where you live or who you know. It's because you loved you enough to say, I'm worth doing whatever it takes to be the person I was created to be.
Wow. I love it. Like, I'm here for that. I support that.
Yes.
Yeah. And where can people, find you and connect with you and, get your books and work with you and stuff?
Yes, thanks, Ariel. So yes, you can find me on the web. Of course, my website is carendadeonne.com, carendadeonne.com. I'm also on the social media platforms under Carenda Deonne and Carenda Deonne LLC. So YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, I'm there. So please be sure to reach out to me. And again, my website is carendadeonne.com. And if you would like to purchase any of my books, you can purchase them on Amazon.
Okay, awesome. And then, you mentioned that you are working on the second edition of Perfect Patty Messed Up, but are you working on anything else right now that you want to share with people?
Sure, Ariel, thanks. You know what? If you don't mind me sharing this, I just launched, maybe a few months ago, it's fairly new, a online marketing course. It's 4 weeks for new entrepreneurs. And I always stress that this is not for seasoned senior entrepreneurs, but if you are a new entrepreneur and you need to build a solid foundation, because I am all about settlement. So if you are looking to build a solid foundation, really understand what marketing is, how it relates to your product or service, and how to build your brand, how to bridge the gap between your message and your audience, then this 4-week online course is for you. And so that's also on my site at carendadeonne.com.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'm definitely going to link all of that in the show notes and stuff so that people can get to it and sign up and everything.
Yay.
Yeah, but thank you so much. You've just shared so much good stuff. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
Ariel, thank you so much. I hope we can chat again. I just enjoyed myself. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to the BU podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share with your friends and write me a review. I would love to hear from you. And you can find me on Instagram at BeAutifulChick or on my website, beautifulchick.com. Remember, be you, be beautiful.